Shall we start?
I think so. So
Okay.
just to introduce myself, I am Christina Lopez-Robb, and I will be the moderator for this event. And I am going to go ahead and mute anyone who is joining with audio and video, any of the attendees, so there's no interference with the audio when our lovely speaker is presenting. Our lovely speaker, speaking of, is Lisa Wakefield, and she teaches English as a second language in a public high school in Arizona. She is a graduate of Grand Canyon University, and she has taught high school ESL for 31 years, and she has worked in a variety of international contexts, including Peru and Chile. She led teacher training projects throughout Peru in partnership with the Ministry of Education and as an English language fellow. So she has a wealth of knowledge, so much to share. And with that, I will turn it over. I think we have someone else joining us. Yay! Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you for those of you who could turn on your cameras, and thank you all for joining this session today. I hope that you will enjoy it. I thought I'd pick 3 applications that might be useful for you, and as we go through this, maybe you can think of one that you can try. If you were in the panel discussion, you know, they talked about being overwhelmed with so much technology. So my goal is not to overwhelm you, but maybe to give you one new tool that you can experiment with and try in your classroom and see if it works for you and your students. So this is titled Amazing Applications for Online Instruction to Engage Your Students. And I'm going to model how to use Edpuzzle in the classroom. Then I'm going to show you Flipgrid, and you're actually going to do a Flipgrid so you practice it like your students would. And then I'm going to end with Pear Deck, and we're going to talk about how all these can work. So on to our next slide. Maybe. Oh, I've got 2 screens for this, so I'm learning how to use 2 screens at the same time. It's a luxury. It's very nice. A little bit about me, so you know that I am a lot like you. I teach secondary English language learners. My students are beginning level students, so most of you would call that pre-A1 or A1 students. And I teach refugees and immigrants from all over the world. So I have students in my classroom from Iraq, several countries in Africa, Guatemala, Vietnam, and Mexico. So you can imagine quite the challenge. I don't speak all those languages. And we are completely online, like many of you are. We started in March when we shut down and went online. And then we did have, because we're a different hemisphere, we did have a summer break. And then we are back online. Our goal is to be back in school in about 2 weeks in a hybrid mode. So students will have an A-B schedule. So the A students will come Monday, Thursday, and the B students will come Tuesday, Friday. And then everyone will learn online on Wednesday, and that allows for some extra cleaning and things like that to happen on campus. But the interesting part with the hybrid is I will have half my students in class and the other half will be online at the same time learning. So that'll be a whole new world for me starting in 2 weeks. My school, I'm from Arizona, so my school here is about 1,900 students. We have 80% of our students on what we call free and reduced lunch, meaning their families don't make a lot of money, so the government provides lunch for them. And 75% of the population is Hispanic on my campus. All right, the first app I want to share with you is called Edpuzzle. I was fortunate to do some professional development this summer, and our district put together lots of training for us virtually. And so I had seen Edpuzzle and thought, man, that's got to be really hard. It's so cool, but I don't know how I would do that. And then I went through the training and realized, oh my gosh, this is the easiest thing ever. So what I love about Edpuzzle is the students are active participants and they're engaged with their learning, which I think is so important. You know, we give students a listening activity and we need them not to just listen, but we need them to engage with the listening. Or we give them something to read. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm reading or listening, I start thinking about everything else. So Edpuzzle forces the students to be active learners and engaged with their listening or reading. And as teachers, you can get a report and see exactly how your students did. So you can use it for evaluation. And you can do this with YouTube. You can take an already existing YouTube video and put it in an Edpuzzle account that you create. You can cut it if you want to make it shorter, or you can use the entire video and then you insert questions in that video. The other thing you can do is you can make your own. So we worked on writing curriculum this summer, and I wrote a dialogue for a restaurant unit or a food unit, and so people are out to dinner. So there's a reading piece for my students. So they have to read, but I recorded it using Screencastify, and I put it in Edpuzzle. So they'll see it, they'll listen to it, and then they have to answer questions. So it's quite interactive. So you can use Loom or Screencastify if you're familiar with that. All right, this is one from Peru, from the Ministry of Education. So I'm going to share this one with you so you can see what it looks like. Oh, it's being very slow.
Now, is this a link I can go ahead and put in the chat? This Edpuzzle?
You can. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and try and reopen it because I don't know why it's not coming up. Technology. Everything worked when I tested it. So, are you in for? Oh, let's try it this way.
Oh, let me get out of there. I think I'm in your same slide.
You're in there. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to show you a little bit. Can you guys see? I've tried to zoom in a little bit.
Perfect.
This is Edpuzzle. So this is an actual lesson from the Ministry of Peru. And then I've gone in and downloaded it to my Edpuzzle account, which I put the link in the slides. I think it's edpuzzle.com. And I can assign it. So I can create a class directly in Edpuzzle, and then I can assign it to them. Or if you use Google Classroom or even Canvas, I can create a Google Classroom account, and then I can assign it to them through Google Classroom. We, this summer as teachers, did a bunch of these, and we just made them public. So if you make it public, your colleagues have access to this, or actually anyone will have access to it. And so if you didn't make it, you can just duplicate it. And then it basically gives you a copy of it. And then you can go in and edit it. So you can see in this one, I put an open-ended question, a multiple choice question, open-ended, multiple choice. So it gives you different options. You can also just put in a note where students have to stop and think about it. So let me play this one.
My hero is you. For Sarah, her mom is her hero because she is the best mom and the best scientist in the world.
So now the students have listened. Now they have to answer the question. They can't just listen and zone out. They have to go, oh, there's a question. So what I love about this is, let's say I didn't get it the first time.
My hero is you. For Sarah, her mom is her hero because she is the best mom and the best scientist in the world.
So now who is Sarah's hero? Her mom. I type in my answer and I hit submit. And then continue.
But even Sarah's mom cannot find a cure for the coronavirus. What is COVID-19? Sarah asked her mom. COVID-19, or the coronavirus, is a very small virus. Some symptoms are fever, cough, and difficulty in breathing, says her mom. How can...
So now I put in a multiple choice questions. What are symptoms of COVID-19 that Sarah's mom says in the story? So fever, cough, difficulty breathing, and then they can submit. I have checked that they can't skip questions. So they won't be allowed to skip over. So if they don't get it, they're gonna have to go back and rewatch. So you get, I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but you get the idea.
How can I fight COVID-19?
And you can see on the multiple choice, it told me that my answer was correct. So it's giving me immediate feedback. So with this, you can go in and set up classes, a grade book. So I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like when your students finish. So here is my content, and I've got folders in here for the different units I teach and things I've been teaching currently. So if I go to, I always have to remember which one I go to. If I go to grade book, I can pick the class I've set up, and I can see my students' work. Can you guys see that, or do I need to zoom in a little bit more? Let me zoom in. Ooh, that might be too much.
I can see it right now.
So
Just fine. Oh, there we go. That's really big. Okay, I think that's very visible. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, I see some nods. Great.
Okay. I see everyone's head turning sideways.
Yeah, total score. Okay.
So this was a video they watched in this unit on singular and plural nouns, and this was a YouTube video. So this one was just pulled from YouTube, and then questions were inserted. This is one that was more like a writing, so it was a reading piece, and then it was narrated for them, and then they had their questions. So I can scroll down and see how all my students did, how much time they put in, and the grades they have. So I'm going to try and unzoom out of that a little bit. Oop, wrong way. All right. So again, that's Edpuzzle, and it's pretty cool because it allows you, I want to go back here to content. And then my content. So it allows you to take, like I said, it allows you to take anything from YouTube if you don't want to create your own. So right here is a YouTube video. All right, this is a YouTube video. This is a YouTube video, and I can zoom in a little bit. This is a YouTube video that I just basically inserted questions to. This one from Peru took me about 5 minutes to make. So it's pretty quick and easy, and I'm pretty confident it's a phone app. So your students, if they're using WhatsApp, they could use it on the app instead of on a computer. But like I said, it's highly engaging. Students can rewatch, re-listen, and I just think it's a great way to teach some listening or reading pieces and have the students interacting with the text or the listening piece. So again, that's Edpuzzle. I'm going to go back here. And oops, I think I'm in the one you're in, Christina. Maybe not. So again, down here at the bottom is the actual link if you want to go in and create and set up your own account. And it's all free, so that's the beautiful thing about it. The next one is Flipgrid. And I learned Flipgrid last year, but I never tried it. And so this summer I played around with it a little bit more. Hi, Socorro. Socorro was a teacher I worked with quite a bit in Peru. I love Flipgrid because my students don't really like to speak a lot on our platform in our virtual classroom, and I need them to speak because they're beginners. So this is a great way for me to watch them or listen to them speak. So on Flipgrid, again, it's free, and students can use a phone app. So if you're using WhatsApp and students are doing a lot of stuff on their cell phones, they can download the Flipgrid app. One of my students this week said to me, Mrs. Wakefield, can I leave the virtual platform? It's really too slow on my Chromebook. And can I just go now and record on my phone? I was like, oh, yeah, that's brilliant. It was faster for her to do it that way. So with Flipgrid, you have to create an account. And again, I've shared the Flipgrid link right here. You add a topic or a group. You add a title and a prompt, and then you get to select a time limit. So sometimes you might want to make it a short time limit. My students, because they're beginning level students, they don't need a lot of time. They can't speak for 10 minutes in English. They're not there yet. But if you had upper level students, I think you have a 10-minute time limit. So you can see here I have a topic if you're following along on personal information. So when we did our unit on personal information, I said, you have to record, my name is, my address is, my phone number is, my ID is, my birthday is. And it was so cool to then go in and watch their recordings. All right, so I'm going to go to the next slide. And just so you know, at the very end of this presentation is a Wakelet, and the Wakelet has videos. If you're not familiar with these apps, it has a video for how to set up an Edpuzzle account and how to use Edpuzzle. videos for Flipgrid. So that's all there. With 45 minutes, I didn't have time to go into great depth, so I added videos for you. All right, one of the things you have to decide on here is, do I want it to use publicly or privately? For me, all my students have a school email and they have to log in with their school email. So I make mine private and then I put in the suffix of their email account. For you, if you know every one of your students has a university email or they're all on Gmail, then you could make it private and put @gmail.com. Those are the emails that can access it. If not, it might be safer to do it public. So if you go public, then there's a code. So remember, you create your topic, decide if it's going to be private or public, and then create. And then down here, you're going to see a code. Christina, do you want to put that in the chat, the Flipgrid? Or do you need me to? So what we're going to do here in a minute is I'm going to model how to do this, and then I'm going to ask you to record a Flipgrid so you get the chance to practice it, just like your students would, and then I'll see them. And then we'll talk about how you give feedback using a Flipgrid. So go ahead and go to what's in the chat box. It should be flipgrid.com with a code. I'm going to click it so you can see mine. So it should look like this. I'll give you guys a minute or so to get there because I know some computers are slow.
So I put in the chat Flipgrid info above, and now I'm giving you the specific Flipgrid that she's using. Yeah.
Yes. So take the one that has the code after it, the 0478. That's the one you need. And it should look like this when you get into Flipgrid. Oh, someone uses Flipgrid. Great. I have just started using it and I love it. It is so fun to see them record. All right. So one of the things I love about this is that it will read. So if you're not familiar, I can hit play here.
Tell me what you have learned from this conference.
That is your prompt that I'm giving you today. And you can adjust this. You can make it a female or male speaker, and you can increase or slow the speed down. So if your students need it read to them, they can have it. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to make a response here so you guys follow along. So it says I have 1 minute and 30 seconds to record, which is way too long. I should have made it shorter. So it tells me this. I'm going to go ahead and click the record button, and I'm going to make my recording. One thing I have learned in this conference is something called a meme generator so that I can do some memes and cartoons for my students. All right, so then I stop my recording and I go next. And I get one thing I have learned in this conference is something called a meme generator so that I can do some memes and cartoons for my students. So if I don't like it, one thing I have learned, if I don't like it, I can re-record, which is great for students because sometimes we don't do it right. And so now after that, I get to take a selfie. And if I don't like my selfie, I can retake it. And then this is the thing I think is really fun for kids and even adults, is I can pick effects. So I can do frames, emojis, text. I kind of like the frames myself. How about this for the jungle of Peru? I think, is that a sloth? Which I loved. So I can pick my frame to go around my selfie. And I can title it if I want. And then I hit submit. So it's pretty quick and easy. And then complete. And now I see that I have one response. So your job now is to go in and tell me one thing you have learned from this conference. We're going to mute everyone in a minute just so you don't have any background or feedback or anything. And I'm going to be quiet for about maybe, first of all, give me feedback. Is everyone in? Do we need more time for you to access Flipgrid? Let me know in the chat, or Christina know.
So, and remember, if you would like to join on audio and video, we only have 2 up here with us now, but we have at least 4 more spots if you want to come up here. That would be great. And okay, we see one response. Yes, I am in. Oh, and then we have Rocio, who's joining us up here. That's great.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, I'm going to assume that most of you are in and where you need to be. Oh, I have a second response. Oh, Zena. Oh, look at that.
Oh, great, Zina, thank you.
There is a place where you can go in and hide it. So if you don't want your other students to see it, my students like seeing each other's, and they're kind of good models and examples. So sometimes I hide it, and sometimes I let them all see each other. So that's a personal opinion for you. So I'm going to be quiet, and you guys go play and come back in about 2 minutes.
I'm going to do one too. So mine, for some reason, didn't allow me to. It says camera and mic help. Maybe because I'm using my camera here already. I don't know why.
I don't know. That's kind of weird. I wonder if your camera you didn't give access to your camera.
I did, and I tried to refresh and reload it again, and I don't know.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna log into my teacher account. So this is my teacher account. So now I can go in. I think it's my teacher account. I have to make sure. I can listen to it.
Hello, my name is Cynthia, and one thing that I learned, yes, right now it's about Edpuzzle, and I love it, and also about Flipgrid, that it's really nice to record videos. So happy to know all those tools to apply with my students. So thank you so much.
Oh, Cynthia, thank you for letting me share yours. That was so awesome. I love it. So there's 2 ways to give your students feedback or give them comments. You can add a comment here, which will be a video one. So I'm going to not do that one just for time's sake. But I can record a comment back to her, and then she can hear my voice and see me, or I can go into Cynthia and I can do written feedback.
Hello, my name is Cynthia.
Oh, sorry,
and one
Cynthia.
thing that I've learned.
It loves to play. The other thing is I can do private comments or feedback right here and email it to my students or copy a link. So depending on your goal, like when my students had to say the alphabet in English, I recorded in a video their feedback so that I could help them with pronunciation and they could hear it. Other times, like when they were doing personal information, I would just kind of write back and say, wow, you really know your personal information, great work. So you can choose what kind of feedback, whether it's recorded or whether it's video. So thank you all for playing along with that. That was so fun to see. And can't you imagine your students in there playing with the effects and putting borders around or writing things? Kids like that kind of stuff. So again, this is what I just kind of told you. Oops. Decide what kind of feedback you want to give, recorded where it's video and audio, or just written feedback. Any questions on that yet? Are we good?
So Fabricio says that, does it work in smartphones? And I think you said yes, right?
Yeah, it is a phone app. Some of my students will use their phone to do it because their computers are so slow. So it gets frustrating for them. So yeah, it will work as a phone app. And then for you, if you're using your phone, make sure you delete them, because you can go in and delete them and you don't want to store all those videos on your phone or even on your computer. So you can go in once you're done, give it a couple days and go ahead and delete. So I try and do at least 1 or 2 of these for each unit I teach. So this unit we're doing is at school is backpack vocabulary and learning about backpack words and doing different verbs. And so we read a story about what school supplies you need, and my students had to make a list of school supplies they needed, and then they recorded what they needed for school. Just a great way to get them speaking, because like I said, they're pretty quiet when we're online, and I really get to hear their true voice when they have a Flipgrid. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And again, there's videos in the Wakelet, so don't feel like, oh my gosh, how did she do all that? All right, the next one I've really started enjoying is Pear Deck. And I like this one because it's great for formative assessments. You can use it for vocabulary. If you go to peardeck.com, they show you how to make vocabulary slides and vocabulary flashcards where students can learn words. It also is great for a check for understanding or a quick review. I have found that that's how I'm using it the most. If I have recently taught a new concept, then I try and go in and sometimes just throw up a couple Pear Deck slides and have the students respond so I can see if they understood what I taught the day before, almost like a warm-up. And then I'm using it a lot for right before we take a test and doing some practice questions to see if they understand the content and just to give them some extra practice. And I'm loving it. It's interactive and it's real time. So that's the other thing I like about it. And you can do it student-led or teacher-led. So if you want to control it, you can control the slides, or if you just want to say, okay, you guys, go off and do this at your own pace, then students can work at their own pace. It works really well with Google. And if you're not a Google user, you don't have to use it. You can still go to peardeck.com and it'll walk you through other ways. I do use Google, so this one is through Google Classroom. So let me pull up my copy. So what you do is you create your slides, and then you have to have the add-on. So if you go to add-ons, there's a Pear Deck. So I've already added on, but I'll show you what this looks like. So it gives me a choice over here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Ooh, that's a little bit too much. So when I create my slide, then I choose what I want. Do I want a text response? Do I want a multiple choice response? Do I want them to put in a number? Do I want them to draw? Or do I want something to be draggable? So when I do that, you can see my slides down here have the Pear Deck symbol, and I've chosen what kind of response I want. So again, this is just a Google slide, and I've got in an add-in. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to go to the add-on again. I went into add-on, and I went to Pear Deck and the Pear Deck add-on. So again, you're going to do this with me. So I'm going to put in the chat box. I want you to open a tab and go to joinpd.com, and we're going to do this together, and it should look like this. Okay, if you're in the right place, it will look like this. And I'm going to give you the code in a second. I'm going to give people a chance to get there. So again, joinpd.com. And it will look like this. So now here's my control as the teacher. I'm going to start the lesson. And I'm going to have to decide, do I want the students to do it at their pace, or do I want to do it at my pace? So I'm going to do instructor paced for today. And you're going to get a code.
So for those who just joined, I think a couple people, I see Monica and a couple others just joined. We're following the joinpd.com website that Lisa is presenting, and she just provided the code right there, so you can enter that. It's also in the chat. Thank you for joining.
Double-clicked on my presentation. If you're having trouble seeing it, make sure you double-click on the presentation. So the code is in chat. Go ahead and do that, and then I will be able to see over here when students enter. It will actually, so 2 students have connected. 3 students have connected. So when you know, okay, majority of my class is in, I'm going to go ahead and start. Give it a couple more minutes for people to connect. Thanks again for coming today. It is so fun to see everybody and meet with people online. Wasn't networking like the best thing ever?
Again, for those who have just joined, even more people are joining right now. Great. If you would like to join us on stage, along with Cynthia and Zaida, you can just click that blue button in the corner there. Should be on the right-hand side, upper corner, and you can join us. I can let you in. There are a couple more spots. Yeah, Beatrice. Yeah.
Beatrice, thank you. I forgot. That was one of the things in my notes, and I totally spaced it. We'll ask you how you are feeling today. And you can actually share that, and students can see how everybody is feeling. All right, we're going to go ahead and start the class just for time's sake. So if you haven't entered the code and you're working on it, keep going for it. The code, Maria, the code is HVUQYF. Christina, will you put that in the chat again?
Yeah, it's right there. I said, right after your comment, Maria, I said here, and I put the code right there.
All right, so if you can see my screen, I'm going to go ahead and start the class. So now you have to type in the answers. So again, this was one I did with my students the first beginning of school because we were learning the alphabet in English. So how many letters are in the alphabet, the English alphabet? Go ahead and type your answers in Pear Deck.
Now there's no submit button. Do we wait for you? Do we just leave the answer?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So I have a little screen down here, and I can lock it. So if I don't want people to put any more answers in, I can lock it and you can't put an answer in. And then I can go to show responses. So here is where we are at. 26 is the correct answer, and you can see the majority of people put 26. There are 26 letters in the English alphabet. Now I can go back and click that and hide the responses. And I'm going to go to my next slide. How many vowels are in the English alphabet? So go ahead and type in your response. If you're in Pear Deck, do it in Pear Deck. So how many vowels are in the English alphabet? A, E, I, O, U. There's your hint.
Just a hint.
Obvious hint. If you've been online for 2 days, your brain might be like, whoa, I can't think
Exactly.
right now.
Everyone is getting it right, though. Good job, everyone. Maria, Fabiana, Junior, Brenda, well done. they're typing it in the comments there.
And I can show the responses, and majority of you put 5, so that is great. And then I'm going to go back and hide them and go to my next slide. Now this is really fun. So you're going to see some little circles down at the bottom. Do you guys see those?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to drag. So drag, I had to teach my students that. You're going to drag the circle over the vowels. So take your circles and move them over the vowels. And you can see how this is a great review. As I'm looking at the responses, I can go, oh, my students get this, or oh my, I need to reteach. They're not getting it.
So for those who just joined, I posted there in the chat, we are at joinpd.com and we followed this code. Can people still join now, or is it too late to join?
I didn't lock it. They probably can. John, I'm going to click show responses, and if you've done it in there, I would be able to see it. So let's see where we're at and how people are doing. All right, so you can see where people are putting them, and it looks like they're covering the vowels really well. And so the great thing about this too is the student who is covering the wrong ones is also learning. All right, so I'm going to hide that. Isn't that cool to see it all moving? And there's maps and flags. I mean, you can do so much with this. All right, so now drag. I think I'm going to skip this one because I wanted you to see. Oh, wait. I put something that was different. All right, that's all right. So now drag the circles over the consonants. And we'll go ahead and check and see how everybody's doing. All right, great work there. It's moving all over the place. Your eyes are probably going crazy. All right, I'm going to do one more drag for you. This is a yes, no answer. I'm going to skip through those because I want you to see this one. Now I changed it and made it a star. So drag the star over the be verbs. Drag the star over the be verbs. The only thing about this one is I have to remember where the be verbs are because you guys hide them.
So while we're doing this, we do have one question. Beatrice asked, can students work on their smartphones with the Pear Deck?
If they have Google Drive, I think they should be able to. That's a great question. But if they have Google Drive downloaded onto their smartphone, it is just a presentation basically. So they would go to joinpd.com and they should be able to. They can open up a presentation. So again, that's Pear Deck. And so when I get to the very end of Pear Deck, oh, and I did one where they had to take a line and draw lines, which pronouns go with the correct be verb. So you can see there's all kinds. This is typing an answer. Who are you? So they have to write and actually type in the answer. And then when I'm at the very end, there's a little end button here. And then I could name this. ABC review, and it will publish. And then I can save it and end, and then I can go back into it. I can go back into Pear Deck and look and see how my students did. So I know which ones really struggled, because it's pretty anonymous on my screen, but I can get a report. All right, so that is Pear Deck. And then, I'm just make sure, oh, there's the add-on, what it looks like. And here's the link to actually start a Pear Deck. And like I said, you don't have to use Google, but that is one option. I also think it's kind of fun for a social emotional check-in. If you want to kind of put something on, how are you feeling about school? How are you feeling about this? You could use it for social emotional check-in. So Christina, will you put the Wakelet
Yes.
link in there? So as I said, I kind of, with only 45 minutes, I just wanted to give you an overview and let you play like a student would with these. And I didn't go into great detail, but I did try and create the Wakelet with all the videos, so you can go back and watch if you're interested in learning more and getting more details. They're fairly user-friendly. Edpuzzle, although it looks a little bit daunting, it's super easy to use. Flipgrid, once you play around with it, is super easy to use, and Pear Deck is fairly easy to use also. So that's kind of it. I wanted to say we have accomplished our mission today by learning. And again, think about what one. I mean, you don't have to try all three of them. You're learning so much in this conference. What are your big takeaways? What is one thing you can do as a teacher to become better at online instruction? Or what's one thing you can use that might benefit your students for online instruction? And maybe these work, maybe they don't for you.
So we do have time for questions. We have about 15 minutes left. I do see a couple of questions in here. I want to make sure I don't miss any, so I'm going back. So Beatrice says, so you are to work these questions on each slide, right? So I think her question is one question per slide. Am I correct on that, Beatrice? Because I think that's correct, right, Lisa? One question per slide.
Okay. Yes. So yeah, in that you want to just go up and create your slides. So when you do that, and then you can decide, what do you want that question? What kind of response do you want? So on this one, I clicked text, and that's why you had to type in an answer, because I gave a text response. If I want a multiple choice, if I want students to have a choice, then I click multiple choice. If I want them to drag, then I can pick, do they want circles? Do they want stars? There's different options. And then I click this, and it embeds it in this slide for just this one question, if that makes sense.
Now I think another question from John. Can you see my responses? So does it give you a report at the end about student responses? Okay.
Yeah, so when I said that last little piece, and you might have missed it, that you can click end, and you have to make sure you save that, like you name it, and there's a little checkbox to get a report, then I know what students' responses were. So I don't know who's saying what at the time when it's real time, but I can see that afterwards, and then I know which students are struggling with what.
So it doesn't provide immediate feedback per se, but at the end you get a report. That's great.
I think, for the students, they're getting immediate feedback, because when they see at where they put their circle for letters of that, or when they see where they put their number for how many letters of the alphabet, and then majority are, and I say, 26 is the correct answer, then they go, oh, I had the wrong answer. So they get that feedback.
Got it. That's neat. It's almost like raising your hand in class and then seeing that everyone else has another answer.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I show the results and I say, "Ooh, this was the right answer," and you didn't have the right answer, you go, "Oh, okay, I didn't know it."
Great. So there's another question about images. Can you drag? So we had those circles. Can we drag those circle over images? I'm assuming so.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's so many cool things you can do with it. So in some of the videos, or even if you just go to peardeck.com, they have lots of tutorials. And, you know, I'm like you, I have been thrown into this virtual learning. And so I'm playing and learning and using these things. So I'm not an expert. You know, but there's tons of tutorials out there to go even deeper with it.
We have one more question out from Giomar again. I think, can you upload audios? Have you experimented with that so far, or is that?
It says you can add audio to the slide, so I'm sure you can.
Oh, yeah, it says it right there. Add audio. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just taught my students. It's a simple audio. If you're in Google Slides, there's a Chrome extension called Simple Audio, and it puts a little recording up there. So on my other screen, you can see a little microphone. So I just taught my students how to upload audio. So they made a presentation this week, and they recorded their vocabulary words and inserted the audio. So you might be able to do something like that with this. But I would just click this tab and try it.
Great. So we have another question. We have a couple more questions, and we have plenty of time, so we're doing great. Fabricio says, are your students in different levels? If so, how do you manage it?
Well, in different levels, yes and no. So technically, my class is all beginning level. But within that, I would say there's always about 4 different levels. You have these kids who know a little more English, these kids who know a little less English, and these kids who know nothing. I mean, they've just walked into the United States and don't know a word. So they're all considered beginners, but I would say every year I have about 4 different levels of those beginners. And so how do I handle it, especially online? For some of this is a technology skill, and it's learning that technology piece. So I just tend to really model and show and review and go over. And then I open up my virtual classroom later in the day when school's out, and I have them come in for extra help when they're really struggling. But, you know, most of them have been able to manage the Pear Deck. It's taken time, I'll be honest with you. It takes time, but once they get it, and, you know, I use Pear Deck probably every couple weeks. I use Flipgrid probably every couple weeks, so they're getting used to it.
Yeah, I think I'd say the same with any new thing I'm introducing. It's always a bit of a, you need to establish the rhythm, and then they kind of understand what their expectations are, and then they kind of understand more how things work. So we have other questions as well. Lisa, is Pear Deck intuitive to manage it rapidly as Mariana?
I think it is. Once you set up your slide deck and choose what kind of answer response you want, then it's really just start the lesson. And that's the learning curve for students to go to that join PD and to put in the code. Once they're there, then it's fairly intuitive. So, you know, once you have it set up, then, you know, it works pretty well. I think the big decision for you is, do you just want to let your students go off and do it at their pace, or do you want to lead it as the teacher? And for right now, I have been leading it because I'm just doing a few slides as a review. At some point, I may switch that over and just say, okay, you guys go off and do your Pear Deck. And then I'll be able to see how they did later. So, you know, I'm still playing around with that a little bit. I haven't done the student-led yet.
Okay, so we have a question from Maria Inga. She says, a question please. This platform is where you are presenting sessions. The platform where you are presenting these sessions. What is it? Oh, this is called Hopin? Is that what you're referring to? I think it's Hopin. Well, I know it's Hopin. Is that what your question? To confirm if I answered your question or not, Maria, if you can. Let's see, another question from Beatrice. During an online session, for example, via Zoom, do students need to use a different device? or can they use the same device for Zoom and Pear Deck?
So yes, as far as I know, my students, a lot of times we don't use Zoom in my district. We use something called WebEx, but it's the same type of thing. It's an online platform like Zoom. So I share my screen and I give them the link, and then, or a lot of times I send them to Google Classroom, and a lot of my stuff is linked in Google Classroom, or I put it in the chat. So they know they click on that link and they open it up. And so as I'm sharing my screen and modeling, they're going in and doing their thing. You know, they're opening a new tab. So I hope that answered your question. Hi, Fernando.
So the other question I see is from Denise. She says, to give a speaking feedback, which one do you prefer?
On Flipgrid? Oh, you know, I guess that might depend how many students you have. Like if you have a lot of students, recording those videos is going to take some time and energy. It really depends. If I'm wanting to review pronunciation, if that was kind of my objective, that they were pronouncing words correctly, then I would probably do the video feedback so they can see my mouth and hear me. And that way they're hearing the correct pronunciation. Otherwise, I would probably just do the quick written feedback and send it to them. And then there was a question someone had, I don't remember where it went, about Edpuzzle and students. Can students see the answers on Edpuzzle? I don't know where that was. For some reason I kept zeroing in on that one.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's farther back.
If you want to repost that question about Edpuzzle and students, I can try and answer that.
Great.
And I hope I just answered the last question. Let me know if that wasn't what you were asking. I'll be glad to clarify.
So I think we already answered Hild Aguilar. She said, can they work on their own pace? With Pear Deck, we know that they can, right? Great.
And with Flipgrid, they definitely can. I think that's one of the things I love about it. Like I'll tell my students, practice. I want you to write out your personal information. And, you know, we had a little worksheet where they were able to do that. And I told them, you know, practice saying it before you record. Practice, practice, practice. And then I give them time. Like I might assign a Flipgrid on Wednesday. And I say, you know, it's not due till Thursday or Friday because kids' lives are crazy just like ours. And so I try and give them time so that they can practice, make sure they understand the information and feel comfortable before they record. So yes, Flipgrid definitely. And then what was the other one? I already forgot what I taught. Isn't that terrible?
You had,
oh, yes, Edpuzzle. And Edpuzzle totally they could do on their time. Like sometimes in my classroom, I'll just say, all right, everybody go for 20 minutes and do the Edpuzzle. When you're done, come back. Because sometimes they don't have the bandwidth. And they'll say, you know, Mrs. Wakefield, can I leave our meeting so that I can go do the Edpuzzle? It's like, well, of course, do that. Just come back at this time. And then if they're not done, because Edpuzzle will just save where they left off. And I just tell them, you know, if you didn't get to finish in the time I gave you, that's okay. You can do it tonight, or if you need to do it tomorrow, just get it done by this time frame. So I really try and work around because, you know, some of these kids like your students, there's 8 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment sharing Wi-Fi, and they don't have great bandwidth and they don't have great internet. So I never want them to feel that pressure of, oh, I didn't get it done in time. Or if they are slower at doing this, they definitely can work at their pace and have extra time.
so great, wonderful. We have, I think we answered most of our questions. I see another question from Maria about this particular platform. She says, how can we use it to get students' attention? I think it's a question more for Jota, for Jose Manrique, who was in charge of putting this whole hop-in platform together. So if you want, Maria, you can try to hunt Jota down and ask him that question directly. I'm not sure. I know that to a certain point, you do have to pay for this platform. So I'm not sure if it would be a great alternative for you, depending on what your capabilities are. Also, thank you, Jessica, for joining us on stage. Thank you so much. And also for Marisol and for Zaida and Cynthia, of course. We still have about 2 more minutes for questions. So if you would like to jump on, or you can also unmute yourself and ask a question if you're on the stage.
Well, I remember there were some teachers that were asking, how can we get the results? If you join this type of things like Flipgrid or Edpuzzle, you can have, the grades on Google Classroom. I use it. So they give you the sheet and the equivalence is given in Google Classroom. So that's awesome. That happens with Edpuzzle. And with Flipgrid too, but anyway, as the lecturer was saying, depends also on the due date. So you put a due date, evidently after the due date, they cannot, give the answers. So it depends on how you set that.
Yeah, so I think I shared, if you saw it, it's like a spreadsheet. So this student got 100, this student got 100, this student got 83. So you can see, and I can see how much time they spent. And I think one of the things that's great about this is I said, sometimes I say, okay, go and do your Edpuzzle now. You have 15, 20 minutes, whatever time I give them. And then I can watch. When I'm in my teacher account, I can go, Mario, what are you doing? You haven't started yet, because it gives the little tab and it shows how far they're progressing. So those students who aren't doing anything, I kind of go, what are you doing? Are you in Edpuzzle? And sometimes they're just struggling and need extra help, and sometimes they're just not working. So you can see in real time where they're at. And then you can go in and grade it. And it's just a quick check. I mean, it'll self-grade the multiple choice because you've put in the correct answer. But if you require short answer, then you just go in and check it and give them yes or no. And then you've got your percentage. So, yeah. So don't forget about the Wakelet. Like I said, there's tons of videos, and you can Google your own videos, but I just thought I would save you a little time and put some in that might be helpful.
Great. So we are actually technically out of time. We're 1 minute past, but we do also we have a big picture question from Fernando Barbosa. What is the biggest challenge for teachers now, in your opinion? So it is up to our attendees if they want to stay for that. Technically, we have, I think, a break after this, but Lisa, it's up to you. Would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, wow, Fernando, that's a tough question. I think for teachers, like, I feel really fortunate that I had time this summer to learn some really neat technology applications and play with them so that I am now able to implement them. Like, for those of you who are just teaching on WhatsApp, that has got to be challenging. I think the technology learning curve, the time it takes, I'm technically a part-time teacher, but I don't work part-time because online learning is really a lot of work for me to get everything loaded and ready for my students. I think one of the issues we struggle with in my community is internet access and bandwidth and slow computers. So I think there's so many big challenges, you know, internet access, technology access, and then, you know, just getting those students on to work, and that whole piece about parents and parents being supportive and understanding. I'm working really hard on parent communication this year. There are some great things, like one of them is called Remind, where you can send out a code to your parents and you can just send them messages. I think it's remind.com, and they don't get your phone number, but you can send information to them. I'm using something called Class Tag, and I put in my parents' phone numbers and the language they speak. So every text I send them is translated into their native language, and then when they respond, it translates it back to English. So I think making sure our parents understand the importance of their students doing their work and everything else is another challenge. There's so many, but you know what? The kids are coming. Do you not love that? My students show up every day and they work so hard. And I just think, man, I don't know how hard this would be if I were doing this online as a 13, 14, 15-year-old with internet issues. Would I just want to quit? And yet my students come every day. So we've got to engage them and motivate them and make them want to come back every day to continue learning.
Awesome. 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 So much great feedback. Everyone is saying thank you. This is great. Thank you so much.
Marcella, Christina, Fernando. Oh, all of you guys, I miss you so much. It's so fun to see your names.
Yeah, I think up there someone was saying, come back to Peru, Lisa.
I will. I hope to.
Awesome.
Gotta open up that airport.
So we are, yeah, if you want to use your break this way with Lisa, that's fine. We're technically into our break right now, 15-minute break. We have about 6 more minutes until, let's see, what was next? Let me check the schedule really quickly. Our schedule has us to the keynote by Karen. So that the keynote speaker is next in about 6 minutes. So if you need to, you can take a break. I do see one more question. Let's see, where was it? It was a little bit back there. By Decini, which app is best to use with 9th graders that are on a basic level in English? Lisa, are you okay with answering that, or do you need to run?
Yeah. Well, I guess it would depend on what you want from them. If you want them speaking, I think Flipgrid is awesome, because then you can do harder things on Flipgrid. I mean, Google and research some of the cool things Flipgrids can do. But if they have a basic level, Flipgrid's just fun. It's simple. It's easy. And then if you're doing some reading or listening, I really like Edpuzzle too. I just think it gives that interactive piece where students have to stop and think. And we really want students thinking. So try Flipgrid or try Edpuzzle, play around with those, see if they work for you, and if your students like them and they work for them. You're just gonna have to see what, teaching's so personal and autonomous. What I love may not be what you love, and that's the beauty of teaching. You get to do what you wanna do and what works for your style and your students.
Great. Well, I think I'm going to start kicking people out because we only have 4 minutes until our keynote speaker. So we want to make sure that you all have time.
Thank you again for joining me today. I hope there's one app you can take and try and let me know how it works. So thank you. Muchas gracias. Buen día.
Thank you. It was wonderful.